The grand assembly hall of the Galactic Consual stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floor. Representatives from 847 different species filled the massive space, their varied forms creating a sea of colors, shapes, and sizes that would have been impossible to imagine on any single world. Dr. Sarah Kim stood at the edge of the presentation area, watching the ongoing demonstrations with quiet interest. Her simple black suit and unremarkable appearance made her nearly invisible among the exotic aliens surrounding her. She carried only a small briefcase and wore no ceremonial decorations or technological enhancements that marked the other presenters. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire stepped forward to present his species' latest achievement. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the hall's lighting and threw rainbow patterns across the walls as he moved. The device he carried hummed with visible energy fields. "Honored delegates," Zethkar announced, his voice carrying the natural authority of a species that had ruled 17 star systems for over 1,000 years. "The Vorthan Empire presents our matter phase manipulator." He activated the device and pointed it toward a solid metal table. The table began to shimmer and fade, becoming translucent, then completely invisible while remaining perfectly solid to touch. The assembled delegates murmured their appreciation as Zethkar explained how the technology could make entire starships pass through solid matter. "Impressive," whispered Counselor Merthak, an ancient Kalari whose species had been exploring space when most others were still discovering fire. "Though we achieved similar results with our dimensional phasing technology 3 centuries ago." The presentations continued throughout the day. The Shilak demonstrated their dimensional pocket storage, creating spaces that could hold entire cities within containers no larger than a human hand. The Nethys showed off their gravity manipulation engines that could create localized gravitational fields strong enough to compress matter into new forms. Each presentation was more spectacular than the last. Energy beams carved through reinforced materials. Holographic displays showed impossible mathematical calculations, and devices that seemed to bend reality itself operated with perfect precision. Dr. Kim watched it all with the patient attention of someone genuinely interested in learning. She asked no questions, made no comments, and showed no signs of being intimidated by the display of technological power surrounding her. As the day progressed, whispered conversations in dozens of languages began to focus on the human representative. "Look at her," chittered a insectoid Shilak delegate to his companion. "She has not even brought a proper display device." "Humans," rumbled a massive Vorthan military advisor. "Such a young species. They probably think their chemical rockets are impressive technology." Counselor Merthak studied the human woman with his ancient eyes. "I have read their submissions to the Consual. They claim to have developed faster-than-light communication, matter reorganization, and consciousness transfer technology. Clearly, they do not understand what these terms actually mean." Director Yixpol, the insectoid coordinator running the exposition, checked her schedule and announced that Earth's presentation would be the final demonstration of the day. The hall settled into expectant quiet as Dr. Kim walked to the center of the presentation area. She looked small and fragile compared to the towering aliens around her. Her briefcase seemed almost comically simple next to the massive technological displays that other species had required for their presentations. "Honored delegates, Dr. Kim began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. "I am Dr. Sarah Kim, representing Earth and humanity. I know that many of you have questions about human technology." A low rumble of amusement passed through parts of the assembly. Several delegates exchanged glances that suggested they were prepared to be entertained by whatever primitive demonstrations the humans might attempt. "I would like to show you 3 simple technologies that humans use regularly," Dr. Kim continued. "I promise these demonstrations will not take much of your valuable time." She opened her briefcase and removed what appeared to be 3 ordinary handheld devices, no larger than the tablets that many species used for basic communication. They had no visible energy fields, made no impressive humming sounds, and showed no signs of the advanced materials that characterized truly sophisticated technology. "First," she said, holding up one of the devices, I would like to demonstrate our basic communication technology. Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward in his crystalline chair. Communication technology was something the Vorthans understood well. They maintained one of the galaxy's most advanced relay networks, capable of transmitting messages across their empire in mere hours through a series of quantum tunneling stations. Second, Dr. Kim continued, holding up the second device, I will show you our approach to resource management and matter reorganization. This caught the attention of the economic specialists in the assembly. Resource scarcity drove most galactic conflicts. Any species claiming to have solved material limitations would need to provide extraordinary proof. Finally, Dr. Kim said, indicating the third device, I will demonstrate what we call consciousness, mobility, technology. The hall fell completely silent. Consciousness transfer was the holy grail of technological development. Dozens of species had attempted it over thousands of years. Most attempts ended in death. The few partial successes had driven their creators insane. Counselor Merthak spoke for the assembled delegates. Dr. Kim, these are very ambitious claims. The technologies you describe represent challenges that have occupied our greatest minds for millennia. Are you certain you wish to proceed with demonstrations that may not meet the expectations you have set? Dr. Kim smiled politely. I understand your concerns, Counselor. Humans prefer to let their work speak for itself rather than making grand claims. If I may have permission to begin? Director Yix Pol gestured her approval, though her insectoid features showed clear skepticism. For the first demonstration, Dr. Kim announced, I will need a volunteer to travel to the observation deck on the far side of the station. Ambassador Zethkar stood immediately. As a representative of a proud military empire, he would not let it be said that the Vorthans were unwilling to participate in whatever simple demonstration the humans had prepared. Excellent, Dr. Kim said, handing him one of her devices. This device is very simple to operate. When you reach the observation deck, simply activate it by touching this surface here. She indicated a smooth panel on the device's surface. Zethkar examined the device with professional interest. It felt solid, but showed no signs of internal complexity. No energy readings, no quantum fluctuations, no dimensional distortions. Just a simple handheld object that could have been made by any industrial civilization. I will return shortly, Zethkar announced, and began the journey across the station. Dr. Kim watched him leave, then turned back to the assembly. While Ambassador Zethkar travels, perhaps I could explain some differences between human communication technology and the excellent systems used by other galactic civilizations. The assembled delegates settled back to wait, most of them expecting to be politely bored by whatever explanation the human might offer about their primitive communication methods. None of them realized that in the next few minutes, their understanding of what technology could accomplish would be completely destroyed. Ambassador Zethkar made his way through the winding corridors of Nexus Prime Station. The journey to the observation deck would take him 20 minutes, even using the high-speed transport tubes. He examined the human device as he traveled, turning it over in his crystalline hands. The object felt ordinary. No exotic materials, no energy signatures, no quantum fluctuations. It seemed to be made of simple metals and synthetic compounds that any spacefaring civilization could produce. Zethkar had expected more from a species that claimed to have developed advanced communication technology. Back in the Grand Assembly Hall, Dr. Kim addressed the waiting delegates. Most galactic species achieve faster-than-light communication through impressive methods, she began. The Vorthans use quantum tunneling stations that create temporary wormholes for data transmission. The Kellery employ psychic amplifiers that boost telepathic signals across vast distances. The Shilak have developed dimensional resonance chambers that send messages through folded space. The delegates nodded approvingly. These were indeed the standard methods for interstellar communication, each representing centuries of advanced research and enormous energy expenditures. Each method requires significant infrastructure, Dr. Kim continued. relay stations, power cores, specialized facilities. The energy costs alone make frequent long-distance communication extremely expensive. This was also true. Even the wealthiest galactic civilizations carefully rationed their faster-than-light communications due to the enormous resources required. Director Yixpol checked her chronometer. Dr. Kim, Ambassador Zethkar, should reach the observation deck in approximately 8 minutes. Thank you, Director, Dr. Kim replied, activating her own device. The screen showed a simple interface with basic controls. Human communication technology developed differently than galactic standard methods. We focused on quantum entanglement rather than space folding or dimensional manipulation. Several delegates exchanged glances. Quantum entanglement was well-known science, but it had limitations that made it impractical for communication. The quantum states could only be measured once before collapsing, and the measurement itself could not transmit meaningful information faster than light. Of course, murmured Counselor Murthok. Quantum entanglement cannot actually transmit information. The correlation between particles is instantaneous, but extracting meaningful data from quantum states requires classical communication methods. Dr. Kim nodded politely. That is the traditional understanding. Yes. Humans approach the problem from a different angle. Ambassador Zethkar finally reached the observation deck. A transparent dome that provided a spectacular view of the binary star system surrounding Nexus Prime. He could see the Grand Assembly Hall as a distant, gleaming structure on the other side of the massive station. Following Dr. Kim's instructions, he touched the smooth panel on the device's surface. The screen activated immediately, displaying a simple interface identical to the one Dr. Kim had shown in the assembly hall. In the Grand Assembly Hall, Dr. Kim's device chimed softly. Every delegate in the massive chamber could see that Ambassador Zethkar had successfully activated his device. Ambassador Zethkar, Dr. Kim spoke into her device. Can you hear me clearly? The response was immediate. Not after the several seconds of light-speed delay that should have been required for signals to cross the station. Not after the processing time that quantum tunneling or dimensional transmission would require. Instantly, as if Zethkar were standing right beside Dr. Kim, his voice emerged from her device. Yes, Dr. Kim, I can hear you perfectly. The device appears to be functioning normally. The delegates stared. Several checked their own instruments, convinced that some kind of local relay system must be operating. Ambassador, Dr. Kim continued, would you please read the identification number printed on your device? Zethkar looked at the device and began to speak. The number is 774921883. But something impossible was happening. As Zethkar spoke into his device on the observation deck, his words were appearing as text on the main display screens in the assembly hall. Not after he finished speaking. Not with any delay at all. The words appeared on the screens before the sound waves of his voice had even finished leaving his mouth. The text was appearing faster than the speed of light. Faster than quantum tunneling. Faster than any known method of information transmission. Director Yixpol's compound eyes focused on her instruments with increasing alarm. This is impossible, she chittered to her assistants. The information is arriving before it is sent. Dr. Kim continued her conversation with Ambassador Zethkar as if nothing unusual was happening. Thank you, Ambassador. Now, would you please describe what you can see from the observation deck? Zethkar's voice came through clearly as he described the view of the binary stars, the distant nebula clusters, and the commercial shipping lanes around Nexus Prime. But again, his words were appearing as text on the assembly hall screens before he spoke them aloud. Counselor Murthok rose from his seat, his ancient mind struggling to process what he was observing. Dr. Kim, this appears to violate causality itself. Information cannot travel faster than instantaneous. Actually, Dr. Kim replied calmly, information can travel faster than instantaneous if you approach quantum entanglement from the perspective of quantum field manipulation rather than particle measurement. She touched another control on her device. Suddenly, the audio connection became three-dimensional. Zethkar's voice now carried the acoustic characteristics of the observation deck. The delegates could hear the subtle background sounds of the station's environmental systems, the slight echo of the transparent dome, even the distant vibrations of passing spacecraft. But more than that, they could hear Zethkar's thoughts before he spoke them. When Zethkar decided to comment on the beauty of the nebula clouds, the delegates heard his internal voice considering different ways to phrase his observation. When he shifted position to get a better view, they heard his mental notes about the station's construction before he mentioned them aloud. "This is not communication," whispered a CELAC physicist to her colleague. "This is direct consciousness connection." Dr. Kim heard the comment and smiled. "Not quite, though that is an understandable conclusion. Human quantum entanglement technology operates by creating stable quantum field bridges between devices. These bridges carry information with perfect fidelity and zero transmission time by bypassing normal space entirely." She paused to let this sink in. "The thought prediction you observed occurs because the quantum field bridges can detect neural activity patterns before they are converted into speech. This allows for more efficient communication and helps prevent misunderstandings." Ambassador Zethkar, still on the observation deck, had been listening to this explanation through his device. "Dr. Kim, are you saying that human communication technology can read thoughts?" "Not exactly read them," Dr. Kim replied. "The quantum bridges detect intention patterns and probability matrices for planned communications. This allows the system to predict likely verbal expressions and prepare appropriate translations or clarifications." The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Not only had humans achieved truly instantaneous communication across any distance, but their technology could predict and interpret intended meaning before it was even expressed. Director Yix Pol checked her instruments again, hoping to find some explanation for what she was witnessing. "Dr. Kim, our most advanced sensors cannot detect any energy emissions from your devices. How is this communication being maintained? Quantum field bridges operate outside normal electromagnetic and dimensional spectrums," Kim explained. "They use what we call quantum substrate manipulation. The energy requirements are minimal because the bridges tap into the base quantum field that underlies all reality." She gestured toward her simple device. "Each human communication device can establish quantum bridges with any number of other devices across unlimited distances. The technology is standard in human society. Most human children receive their first communication devices around age 6. The silence in the assembly hall was complete. 847 species, representing the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy, sat in stunned quiet as they realized that their most sophisticated communication networks were primitive compared to what human children used as toys. Ambassador Zethkar's voice came through the quantum bridge one final time. "Dr. Kim, I believe I am beginning to understand why humanity requested this demonstration." "Indeed," Dr. Kim replied. "Shall we proceed to the second demonstration?" Ambassador Zethkar made his way back to the Grand Assembly Hall with quick, determined steps. His crystalline form reflected his agitation as he processed what he had just experienced. The quantum communication had been impossible by every law of physics he understood, yet it had worked with casual simplicity. When he returned to his seat, the hall was still buzzing with quiet conversations in dozens of languages. Delegates were checking instruments, consulting with their scientific advisors, and sending urgent messages to their home governments about what they had witnessed. Dr. Kim waited patiently for the discussions to quiet down before beginning her second demonstration. She retrieved the second device from her briefcase, another seemingly simple object that looked like a small metallic cube with smooth surfaces. "For our second demonstration," she announced, "I would like to address the resource scarcity problems that have challenged galactic civilization for thousands of years." This statement caused immediate attention. Resource conflicts had driven more wars than any other single factor in galactic history. Rare materials, energy sources, and habitable worlds were the foundations of interstellar politics and economics. Director Yix Pol leaned forward with interest. Dr. Kim, resource scarcity is indeed one of our greatest ongoing challenges. Many species have developed sophisticated mining, synthesis, and conservation technologies, but the fundamental limitations remain. Yes, Dr. Kim agreed. Most galactic approaches focus on finding new sources of materials or developing more efficient use of existing resources. Humans took a different approach. She held up the metallic cube. We developed what we call basic matter reorganization technology. Counselor Murthok spoke up from his ancient seat. Matter reorganization has been attempted by many species over the millennia. Alchemical transmutation, molecular manipulation, even controlled fusion processes. The energy requirements make such approaches impractical for large-scale use. That is true for most methods, Dr. Kim acknowledged. Human technology operates on different principles. She looked around the assembly. I would like to request a volunteer to provide me with any object they consider worthless or unwanted, something that has no value to your species. The delegates exchanged glances. Several offered various items, but Counselor Murthok stood and approached Dr. Kim with a piece of corroded metal plating. This came from a derelict spacecraft found drifting in dead space, he explained. The metal has been so degraded by radiation and chemical exposure that it cannot be recycled or reprocessed. It is literally worthless refuse. Dr. Kim accepted the metal plating and examined it briefly. The material was indeed heavily corroded, with a rough, pitted surface and visible structural damage throughout. Any civilization would consider such material to be waste. Thank you, Counselor, she said, then opened a small chamber in her cube device. This chamber can accommodate objects up to a certain size. I will place your metal sample inside. She placed the corroded plating into the chamber and closed it. The cube device began to emit a quiet humming sound, but showed no external signs of activity. No energy discharges, no dimensional distortions, no visible signs of the massive power that other species required for matter manipulation. The process will take approximately 30 seconds, Dr. Kim announced. 30 seconds? Chittered a Shellac physicist. Our most advanced matter converters require hours or days to achieve even simple molecular restructuring. Dr. Kim nodded. Different approaches yield different efficiency levels. Human technology focuses on direct atomic manipulation rather than molecular conversion processes. The humming stopped. Dr. Kim opened the chamber and removed a perfect sphere of gleaming metal that reflected the hall's lighting with brilliant clarity. She held the sphere up for all to see. This is pure trilithium, arranged in perfect crystalline structure. The assembly hall erupted in shocked voices. Trilithium was one of the rarest and most valuable substances in the galaxy, used only in the most advanced starship cores and dimensional manipulation devices. A sphere this size would be worth the annual economic output of most small civilizations. Impossible, breathed Director Yixpol. Trilithium cannot be artificially created. The atomic structure is too complex. The energy requirements, too enormous. That is true for traditional synthesis methods. Dr. Kim agreed. Human matter reorganization does not attempt to create trilithium through conventional nuclear processes. Instead, we disassemble the original material at the atomic level and rebuild it into the desired configuration. She gestured to the gleaming sphere. The corroded metal that Counselor Murthok provided contained iron, carbon, silicon, and various other elements. Our device mapped the atomic structure, disassembled the material completely, and rebuilt those same atoms into perfect trilithium. Ambassador Zethkar examined the sphere with his crystalline fingers. His species had extensive experience with rare materials, and he could confirm that this was indeed genuine trilithium of the highest possible quality. Dr. Kim, he said slowly, if humans can reorganize any matter into any other configuration, then resource scarcity becomes meaningless. That is essentially correct, Dr. Kim replied. Human matter reorganization technology can convert any material into any other material as long as the basic atomic components are available. The energy requirements are minimal because we work with existing atoms rather than trying to create new ones. The economic specialists in the assembly were frantically calculating implications. If humans could convert worthless waste into the most valuable materials in the galaxy, then every economic system, every trade agreement, every resource-based political structure would become obsolete overnight. Dr. Kim seemed to understand their concerns. I should clarify that this technology has practical limitations. The reorganization process requires detailed molecular templates for complex materials. Humans spent considerable time analyzing trilithium structure before we could reproduce it. She paused. However, we have been studying galactic materials for some time and have developed templates for most substances that are considered rare or valuable in interstellar commerce. Director Yixpol was examining readouts from her instruments. Dr. Kim, our sensors cannot detect the mechanism by which your device operates. There are no energy signatures consistent with atomic manipulation. Human matter reorganization operates through controlled quantum field manipulation. Dr. Kim explained. The device creates localized quantum fields that can influence atomic binding forces directly. This allows us to disassemble and reassemble matter without requiring the enormous energy inputs that other species use for similar processes. Counselor Merthok held the trilithium sphere with trembling hands. Dr. Kim, this single demonstration represents technology that could transform galactic civilization completely. The economic implications alone. We understand the significance, Dr. Kim assured him. That is why humanity chose to reveal this technology gradually, in a controlled diplomatic setting. We want to ensure that these capabilities can be integrated into galactic society in ways that benefit everyone. She returned the trilithium sphere to Counselor Merthok. Please consider this a gift to the Galactic Consual. With humanity's compliments. The elderly Kalari stared at the sphere, his ancient mind struggling to process the implications of casual generosity on such a scale. A gift of trilithium worth more than most species' annual budgets, created from worthless waste in 30 seconds. Dr. Kim retrieved her third and final device from the briefcase. If the assembly is ready, I would like to proceed to our final demonstration. She looked around the hall at faces showing mixtures of awe, confusion, and growing concern. This last technology addresses what many species consider the ultimate limitation of biological existence. She held up the final device. Human consciousness, mobility technology. The silence that followed was absolute. Every delegate understood the implications of what Dr. Kim was suggesting, and every one of them knew that consciousness transfer was considered impossible by the combined scientific knowledge of galactic civilization. Dr. Kim, Director Yixpol said carefully, consciousness transfer has been attempted by dozens of species over thousands of years. Every attempt has ended in either death or complete mental breakdown. Dr. Kim smiled politely. Yes. We studied those attempts extensively. Human researchers concluded that previous approaches failed because they focused on copying consciousness rather than moving it. She activated the device in her hands. We developed a different method entirely. Dr. Kim activated her third device, and 2 panels slid open in the presentation area floor. From each panel, an identical android body rose silently into view. The bodies were clearly artificial but perfectly human in appearance, with the same facial features, hair color, and general build as Dr. Kim herself. The assembled delegates stared at the android forms with growing unease. Most galactic species had experimented with robotic bodies and artificial intelligence. But true consciousness transfer remained the boundary that no civilization had successfully crossed. Consciousness transfer has indeed been attempted many times throughout galactic history, Dr. Kim acknowledged. Most attempts failed because they tried to copy the mind from one location to another. The original consciousness was either destroyed in the process, or the copy was incomplete and unstable. She gestured toward the android bodies. Human researchers approached the problem differently. Instead of copying consciousness, we developed technology to move it completely from one vessel to another. Director Yix Pol's compound eyes focused on her instruments with increasing alarm. Dr. Kim, our sensors detect no artificial intelligence patterns in those android bodies. They appear to be completely inactive. That is correct, Doctor, Kim replied. The android bodies are simply vessels. They have no independent consciousness or artificial intelligence. They are designed to be operated by transferred human consciousness. She placed what appeared to be a simple headband device on her head. The device had no visible controls, no energy emissions, no signs of the complex technology that would be required for consciousness manipulation. The transfer process is painless and instantaneous, Dr. Kim explained. I will now demonstrate human consciousness mobility. She pressed a single control on the headband device. Immediately, her original body went completely limp, slumping forward, as if she had suddenly fallen unconscious or died. The delegates gasped in shock, several rising from their seats in alarm. But before anyone could respond, one of the android bodies opened its eyes and sat up smoothly. Please do not be concerned, the android said in Dr. Kim's exact voice. The transfer was successful. My consciousness is now operating from this android body, while my biological form rests. The android stood and walked to the center of the presentation area. Its movements were fluid and natural, showing none of the mechanical stiffness that characterized most artificial bodies. As you can see, the android continued, my memories, personality, and thought patterns are completely intact. This is not a copy or simulation of my consciousness. It is my actual consciousness operating from a different physical vessel. Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward, his crystalline form reflecting his intense focus. Dr. Kim, how can we verify that you are truly the same consciousness that began this presentation? 1. The android smiled with Dr. Kim's characteristic expression. An excellent question, Ambassador. You will recall that during our communication demonstration, you described seeing the binary stars from the observation deck. You specifically mentioned that the smaller star reminded you of the home star of your military academy on Vorthan Prime. Zethkar's crystalline features showed surprise. This detail had been mentioned in a private conversation over the quantum communication link, not something that could have been programmed into an android in advance. You also noted, the android continued, that the commercial shipping patterns around Nexus Prime were similar to those you observed during the Battle of the Outer Rim, where you served as a tactical coordinator 23 years ago. This information had been shared in casual conversation during the return journey to the assembly hall. No recording devices could have captured it, and no android programming could have anticipated these specific personal details. I am convinced, Zethkar announced. This is indeed Dr. Kim's consciousness, operating from an artificial body. Counselor Murthok studied the android with his ancient eyes. Dr. Kim, this technology represents a form of immortality. If consciousness can be transferred to artificial bodies, then death becomes optional. That is essentially correct, the android replied. Human consciousness transfer technology allows indefinite life extension through body replacement. However, the demonstration is not yet complete. The android activated a second control device. Suddenly, the second android body also opened its eyes and sat up. Good afternoon, honored delegates, the second android said in the same voice. I hope you are finding this demonstration informative. The first android nodded to the second. Indeed, the delegates seem quite interested in our technology. I believe they are beginning to understand the implications. The second android agreed. The assembly hall fell into stunned silence as the delegates realized what they were witnessing. Both android bodies were moving independently, both speaking with Dr. Kim's voice and personality, both demonstrating complete awareness and intelligence. Director Yix-Pol's instruments were registering impossible readings. This cannot be possible. Two separate consciousness entities cannot operate simultaneously from the same source. Actually, the first android explained, they are not separate consciousness entities. They are the same consciousness operating through multiple physical vessels simultaneously. Think of it. The second android continued. Like a river that splits into two streams. The water is the same, but it flows through different channels. Each body experiences independent sensory input, the first android added. But both share the same core consciousness, memories, and decision-making processes. The philosophical implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. The very concept of individual identity, the foundation of all galactic legal and social systems, was being shattered before their eyes. Counselor Merthak spoke with the careful precision of someone trying to maintain sanity in an impossible situation. Dr. Kim, if human consciousness can operate through multiple bodies simultaneously, then traditional concepts of individual identity become meaningless. Both androids nodded in unison. That is an important consideration, they said together. Human society has had to develop new frameworks for understanding identity and responsibility when consciousness becomes fluid. The first android gestured toward Dr. Kim's original, still unconscious body. My biological form is not dead or damaged. It is simply inactive while my consciousness operates elsewhere. I can return to it at any time. Number 20. Always want to as opera. Centurantam. I would forward it in forms. Or, the second android added, I can continue operating through multiple vessels indefinitely, experiencing life from several perspectives simultaneously. Ambassador Zethkar was calculating military implications with growing alarm. Dr. Kim, if human consciousness can be backed up and transferred, then humans become effectively impossible to eliminate permanently. Backup and restoration capabilities are indeed part of the technology. The first android confirmed. Human consciousness can be stored in quantum substrate matrices and restored to new vessels if the original is destroyed. This means, the second android continued, that humans can take risks that would be fatal for other species, knowing that death is temporary rather than permanent. The economic specialists were frantically updating their calculations. Immortal humans, who could multiply their consciousness and operate through multiple bodies simultaneously, would revolutionize every aspect of galactic civilization. Dr. Kim's original body suddenly took a deep breath and sat up, fully conscious and alert. At the same time, both android bodies continued their independent movement and conversation. As you can see, all three bodies said in perfect synchronization. Human consciousness can operate through any number of compatible vessels simultaneously. The original Dr. Kim stood and walked to join her android forms. The technology also allows for consciousness merging and separation, shared memories across multiple individuals, and collaborative thinking on scales that single-vessel consciousness cannot achieve. Director Yix-Pol checked her instruments one final time, hoping against hope to find some rational explanation for what she was witnessing. The readings showed no energy signatures, no quantum fluctuations, no dimensional distortions that could account for consciousness transfer and multiplication. Dr. Kim, she said carefully, our most advanced sensors cannot detect any mechanism by which this technology operates. All three forms of Dr. Kim smiled simultaneously. Human consciousness transfer operates through quantum substrate manipulation at levels that exist beneath conventional detection thresholds. The technology accesses the fundamental information layer that underlies all conscious thought. One of the android bodies gestured toward the assembly. Each of you possesses consciousness that already exists as quantum information patterns. Human technology simply learned to read, transfer, and multiply those patterns directly. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes, as 847 species tried to process the complete transformation of their understanding of consciousness, identity, and the nature of existence itself. Finally, Counselor Merthok spoke for the entire assembly. Dr. Kim. These 3 demonstrations represent technology so far beyond galactic capabilities that we lack the framework to even understand their implications. All 3 forms nodded gravely. We understand your concern, Counselor. That is why we must proceed to explain the most important part of this presentation. The Grand Assembly Hall erupted into chaos as the full implications of human technology became clear to the assembled delegates. Emergency communication channels opened to home governments as species representatives tried to explain what they had witnessed. Economic advisors frantically recalculated the value of entire galactic industries that would become obsolete overnight. Military strategists realized that traditional concepts of warfare, territory, and defense meant nothing against immortal, multiplying humans with unlimited resources and instantaneous communication. Director Yixpol struggled to maintain order as hundreds of conversations broke out in dozens of languages. Some delegates demanded immediate emergency sessions with their governments. Others insisted on private meetings to discuss technology sharing agreements. Several species representatives were openly discussing the formation of defensive alliances against what they now perceived as an overwhelming human technological advantage. All 3 forms of Dr. Kim waited patiently for the chaos to subside. When the noise finally quieted to a manageable level, Dr. Kim's original body stepped forward to address the assembly. Honored delegates, she began, I understand that what you have witnessed today is overwhelming. The quantum communication, matter reorganization, and consciousness transfer technologies do indeed represent significant advances over current galactic standards. Ambassador Zethkar stood, his crystalline form reflecting his agitation. Dr. Kim, significant advances is a considerable understatement. What you have demonstrated represents technology so far beyond our capabilities that we must completely reconsider humanity's place in galactic civilization. That brings me to the most important part of today's presentation, Dr. Kim replied. What I have shown you today are not humanity's greatest technological achievements. They are standard household technologies that every human child learns to use. The silence that followed was absolute and terrifying. Counselor Merthok spoke with the careful precision of someone whose ancient worldview was being systematically destroyed. Dr. Kim, are you saying that quantum communication, matter reorganization, and consciousness transfer are considered basic technology by human standards? Yes. All 3 forms of Dr. Kim answered simultaneously. These technologies are taught in human elementary schools. Most human children receive their first quantum communicators around age 6, learn basic matter reorganization in middle school, and begin consciousness transfer training in their teenage years. Director Yixpol's compound eyes were registering readings that her instruments insisted were impossible. If these are basic human technologies, then what do you consider advanced? 2. Dr. Kim's original form smiled politely. That discussion will need to wait for future meetings. Today's demonstrations were specifically chosen because human leadership wanted to start with concepts that alien minds could comprehend and accept. The weight of this statement hit the assembly like a physical blow. The impossible technologies they had witnessed were simplified examples chosen for alien comprehension. However, one of the android forms continued. There is one more revelation that the assembly needs to understand before we can proceed with formal diplomatic relations. All 3 forms of Dr. Kim looked around the assembly hall with expressions that mixed sympathy with determination. Humanity has been aware of galactic civilization for over 2 centuries, Dr. Kim announced. We have been observing your species, studying your technologies, and monitoring your political developments since before most of your current governments were established. The chaos that erupted made the previous confusion seem mild by comparison. Delegates were shouting questions, accusations, and demands in dozens of languages simultaneously. The revelation that humans had been secretly watching galactic civilization for centuries, while appearing to be a primitive newcomer species, challenged every assumption about human capabilities and intentions. Ambassador Zethkar's voice cut through the noise with military authority. Dr. Kim, if humans have possessed this level of technology for centuries, why reveal yourselves now? Dr. Kim's original form answered, while the android forms managed to calm delegates in different sections of the assembly hall through their quantum communication abilities. Human leadership spent considerable time debating when and how to reveal our existence to galactic civilization. She explained. We wanted to ensure that our technological capabilities would not cause economic collapse, social panic, or desperate military responses. She gestured toward the still chaotic assembly. As you can see, even this carefully planned revelation is causing significant disruption. Imagine the consequences if humanity had appeared suddenly with our full technological capabilities. Counselor Merthok was processing implications that threatened to overwhelm his ancient mind. Dr. Kim, if humans have been secretly observing galactic civilization while possessing impossible technology, then every assumption we have made about interstellar relations has been fundamentally wrong. Not wrong. One of the android forms corrected gently. Incomplete. Humanity chose to remain hidden until we were certain that contact would benefit galactic civilization rather than destroying it. 17 Repisold. Destroying. Then why reveal yourselves now? Director Yix-Pol asked. Her instruments still failing to provide rational explanations for anything she was witnessing. All three forms of Dr. Kim exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes of information instantaneously through their quantum consciousness link. Because, Dr. Kim's original form announced, humanity has recently developed even more advanced technologies that will fundamentally change the nature of reality itself. We need to prepare galactic civilization for what comes next. The silence that followed was pregnant with implications too vast to fully comprehend. The technologies I demonstrated today, Dr. Kim continued, represent what humans accomplished in our first few centuries of serious technological development. In recent decades, we have achieved breakthroughs that make quantum communication, matter reorganization, and consciousness transfer look primitive by comparison. She paused to let this sink in. We are on the verge of technologies that will affect not just galactic civilization, but the fundamental structure of space, time, and reality throughout this region of the universe. Ambassador Zethkar found his voice first. What kind of technologies? 1. Reality manipulation on universal scales. One android form replied. Dimensional engineering that can create entirely new universes. Consciousness expansion that can link every sentient mind in the galaxy into collaborative networks. Time manipulation that makes causality itself negotiable. The second android added. Energy sources that tap directly into the quantum foundations of existence. Dr. Kim's original form concluded. Technologies that will either elevate galactic civilization to unimaginable heights or destroy everything if implemented incorrectly. The assembly hall fell into the deepest silence in its recorded history as representatives from 847 species tried to process revelations that challenged their understanding of existence itself. Finally, Director Yix-Pol spoke for the entire assembly. Dr. Kim, what does humanity want from galactic civilization? All three forms smiled with genuine warmth. Partnership, they said together. Humanity has spent centuries developing incredible technologies, but we have done so in isolation. We want to share these capabilities with galactic civilization and work together to explore possibilities that even humans cannot achieve alone. However, Dr. Kim's original form continued, such cooperation requires careful planning and gradual implementation. The technologies demonstrated today will need to be integrated slowly into galactic society to prevent economic and social collapse. One of the android forms gestured toward the assembly. Human leadership proposes the establishment of joint research facilities, carefully controlled technology transfer programs, and collaborative development projects that will benefit all participating species. We have the power to solve every major problem facing galactic civilization, the second android added. Resource scarcity, communication limitations, biological mortality, even the physical constraints of space and time itself. Dr. Kim's original form concluded, but we want to accomplish this through cooperation rather than domination. Humanity believes that the greatest achievements come from working together rather than working alone. Counselor Merthok stood slowly, his ancient frame showing the weight of revelations that had transformed his understanding of existence. Dr. Kim, on behalf of the Galactic Consual, I move that we vote immediately on establishing formal diplomatic relations with Earth and beginning the technology-sharing protocols you have described. The vote was unanimous. 847 species, representing the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy, voted to partner with humanity in exploring the incredible possibilities that lay ahead. As the Assembly began to organize the massive undertakings that would be required for human galactic cooperation, Dr. Kim quietly merged her consciousness back into her original body and deactivated the android forms. She packed her simple devices back into her briefcase and prepared to leave, knowing that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of limited resources, slow communication, and mortal consciousness was ending. The age of human galactic partnership and unlimited possibility was about to begin. The only question remaining was whether galactic civilization was ready for the really interesting technologies that humanity had yet to reveal.